Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So we are again here with the series for Essential Theravada Buddhism, or Beginner Buddhism, or Beginner Theravada Buddhism. We had talked a little bit about an introduction and why we need to talk about beginner topics and how we can talk about these things again and again and again, and we should bring them to mind again and again and again. We also talked about Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. This is the number one chant that any monk will be chanting, because it just happened so many times before every single Dhamma talk or before his chanting. So many cases, sometimes even before confession, some monks they insist on doing Namo tassa. And Namo tassa is the shorthand for that. So we did the Namo tassa because one is the most important or popular or recited chant in Theravada Buddhism. What is number two? So number two would be 𝗷𝗶𝗶𝗍. This is the chant to describe the Buddha's qualities. This is, sometimes we call it the 9 qualities of the Buddha. Now there's 9 qualities, but there are actually 3 qualities. The first 3 qualities that we discussed in Namo tassa are actually part of the 9 qualities. So we really only have to cover 6 new topics today. But we will be talking about the total of 9 qualities because, like I said before, you might be able to remember, or you might have forgotten, and so for that reason we just do things again and again and again and remind ourselves what are the qualities, what are these teachings. Like I said before, we chant this many times every day, sometimes a couple times per day. Actually, on the way this morning to alms, I was chanting this, also the Metta Sutta. So it's done again and again and again because we want to bring these qualities to mind. And so listening to a Dhamma talk like this again and again and again is very important. Whether you know it or whether you do not know the exact details that are covered in this Dhamma talk. You can skip to maybe this part right now where I describe what 𝗷𝗶𝗍𝗍 Bhagava is. In a little bit I'll discuss that. But we want to talk about Ratana. So we're going to talk about the triple gem. This is the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And we have, it's called the Ratana, is a gem. A gem is something that is useful, it's valuable, it's sought after, it's useful, and you can do many things with it. Like gold, silver, diamonds, rubies. These are precious metals, precious gems. And they can be something that cannot be taken away from you. So if you have gold or a diamond, someone can rob you of these items. If you bury them, someone can dig them up. There could be an earthquake and they can be removed or moved from there. A thief could take them. But when you really take triple gem, when you take refuge, then it is up to you to keep these precious gems within you. They can offer refuge, and so we have a triple gem. We also have sarana. We have ratana and we have sarana. So the triple gem is the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and the threefold refuge, tisarana, is refuge. It's like a shelter. It's like a house that protects you from the elements. So you take refuge in the triple gem. Many times before you will take the 5 precepts, you actually say, Tisaranena saha pancha silam yachami anugaham katava silam deta me bhante. So you're saying, Tisaranena saha pancha silam yachami. You're saying with the 3 refuges, with the 3 refuges, triple gem, with the 3 refuges in triple gem. Please give the 5, I'm asking for the 5 precepts. This is something when you go to a monk, when you go to a monastery, and you make a donation, usually you will say that phrase. You will take triple gem, you will take the 5 precepts in order to reset or redetermine your determination to follow the teachings of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, to take refuge in those, and to also follow some of the most basic instructions for lay people, to follow the 5 precepts. This is not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual misconduct, not to lie, and not to take intoxicating substances. You want to reaffirm this determination that you will follow these 5 rules when you take triple refuge. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So you're taking refuge in the Buddha, you're taking refuge in the Dhamma, and you're taking refuge in the Sangha. Actually, it's I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. So these are things that you say all the time when you go to the monastery. You should be going to the monastery. You should not be relying on videos as a replacement for going to the monastery, relying on videos as a replacement for taking refuge in front of a monk, and you should not be relying on videos as a replacement for taking 5 precepts in front of a monk. And so this is a very, very important. But sometimes you cannot go and there's only the videos. The videos became very popular during the COVID time. And studios were formed and video lectures were made at many monasteries because people could not come to the monasteries. For 2 reasons. They didn't want to get infected by other people, and also they didn't want to have the infections go to the monks. So our monastery, when I was in Myanmar, it was total lockdown. We didn't have anyone come to the monastery. And so during that time, it served as a replacement for going to the monastery. Of course, also just spreading the disease in general. But it's very important to come to the monastery. And so if you do chanting with the monks, you will say Namo Tassa. And you will also say 𝗷𝗶𝗍 𝗶𝗷𝗃 Samma Sambuddho Vidya Charana Sambanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Sattha Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. Hopefully this is familiar to you in some way or another. These are the 9 qualities of the Buddha. In the Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, these 3 qualities are also part of the 9 qualities of the Buddha. The Bhagava, let's review. The grammar is a little different though. Bhagavato is now Bhagava. So Bhagava is the blessed one or the fortunate one. Araham, the worthy one. Greed, hatred, and delusion are permanently removed. Samma Sambuddho, the fully self-enlightened one. I had talked about how long in samsara the bodhisattva has gone, and that we should know the difference between an arahant and a Buddha, Samma Sambuddho. Whenever we say Buddha, we really mean Samma Sambuddho. Sometimes if we say something different, like a 𝗹𝗃𝗃𝗃, a Buddha who does not teach, then we usually say 𝗹𝗃𝗃𝗃. But when we say Buddha, we just say Buddha. We often do not say Samma Sambuddho. But because there are so many different teachings, so many different traditions, that somehow, sometimes I think they shortcut what a Buddha is, then we have to say Samma Sambuddho. But in our tradition, we live in our own bubble. We just say Buddha. It means Samma Sambuddho. An arahant is one who is fully enlightened. They have greed, hatred, and delusion permanently removed. It don't come back. And these are the causes for rebirth. So an arahant does not get born again. An arahant, we could say more accurately, the 5 khandhas do not arise again, and there is nothing else than those 5 khandhas that make up what we refer to as a self, but there is no self. They arise and pass away every moment to moment. But when the death moment happens, there's no more arising. As some people believe that the soul goes somewhere that it can't go, some special place. It doesn't do that. There is no soul in Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism. And what we wrongly perceive as a soul is actually the 5 khandhas. We could say that mind and matter. The 5 khandhas also includes matter. But we will talk about the 5 khandhas, nama, rupa, mind and matter. We'll talk about that later. But as I said, we're wrongly taking a self. These are the 5 khandhas. The Samma Sambuddho is also an arahant. But the Buddha, and we're just calling him a Buddha now, the Buddha is very special, and we will be talking about the qualities of the Buddha that are very special to, let's say, an arahant, who is usually, when we say an arahant, we don't usually refer to the Buddha as an arahant. We refer to an arahant as a disciple who has attained the teachings to the fullest level, who has extinguished all his defilements permanently, and they do not come back. And by that reason, when he dies, there is no more re-arising of the 5 khandhas immediately after the death moment. For regular people, for those who are not enlightened, for sure, it is bound to happen another life, another set of 5 khandhas in most cases, unless you have a special type of samadhi. These 5 khandhas will re-arise again. The Buddha, when we call the Buddha an arhat, we also say he has permanently destroyed greed, hatred, and delusion. He will not arise again as well. We say that. But he's a very special. And it takes a long time for a bodhisattva, double T, no V. Bodhisattva. For the bodhisattva to become a Buddha, even after he gets this prediction, he must go through samsara and training and developing his parami even further. Originally his parami is enough to become enlightened, but he wants to go further. He wants to be special, a special enlightened person who can teach like no other, who can set the Dhamma wheel in motion when it is not present. So this is the Bhagava, the Arham, the Samma Sambuddho, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, because he has a greed, hatred, and delusion permanently destroyed. And the Samma Sambuddho, the one who is fully self-enlightened. He has no other teacher. So we could say that for each of these qualities, we say because of this reason, he is the Arham. Because of this reason, he is the Samma Sambuddho. Because of this reason, he is the Bhagava, the Arham, and the Samma Sambuddho. And all of them, the 9 qualities. So, iti-piso, Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddho, Vinja Charana Sambanno Sugato Lokavidu, Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati, Satta Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. So because of all these reasons, then this is how we get the gem of the Buddha. Vidyacharana Sampanno. This means endowed with knowledge and conduct. How do we explain these things? The list gets very long. If I list them, maybe you'll get confused. But I will list them anyways, in brief or in groups. I'll call them, well, we can call them, actually the texts call them as the 8 types of knowledges. We have 6 direct knowledges together with insight and the supernormal power of the mind-made body. I'll skip over what these are, but they are the knowledges, and they are the psychic powers. And the Buddha has these. And for conduct, there are 15 types of charana. And maybe we can have a class on this as well. Restraint in virtue, guarding the sense faculties, knowledge of the right amount of food for eating, devotion to wakefulness, the 7 good states, the 4 jhanas, and the fine material sphere. The 7 good states, the faith, conscience, shame, learning, energy, mindfulness, and understanding. Whew. All these lists, they will go in one ear, out the other. But the main thing that you need to know is that the Buddha has the knowledge, and the Buddha has perfect conduct. Vidya charana sampanno. Vidya is knowledge, and charana is conduct. Sampanno is endowed with. Sugito. Sugito means well gone. Well gone, he's fulfilled his purpose in life. And as we say, he has entered parinibbana. What we mean by entered parinibbana? Can we talk to the Buddha? Can we talk to him in parinibbana? Can he appear to us? Can he appear to us and give us teachings in parinibbana? Can we meditate? Can we see other previous Buddhas who are living in parinibbana? No. This is an expression. There are no more 5 khandhas. So when we say entered parinibbana, we say that the 5 khandhas became extinguished and they did not arise again. Another meaning for sugito is well-spoken. Lokavidu. Lokavidu is another quality. It is knower of the worlds. The world, the Buddha knows that the world of samsara does not end unless one reaches nibbana, parinibbana, to extinguish the 5 khandhas and for them not to arise again after death. We also have a tiloka. Lokavidu, what it could also mean tiloka, knowing the 3 worlds. The sankhara loka, this is the conditioned world. Mind and matter and paticca samuppada, the dependent origination. The satta loka, the world of beings. These are the 31 planes of existence. And lastly, we have 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗃 loka, the world of space. So this is the Tiloka, and the Buddha has full knowledge of this. The next quality, anuttaro purisa dhammasarati. Incomparable is anuttaro. Purisa dhammasarati is the trainer of those who are tameable. When we talk about the Buddha having these qualities, he can train those who are actually are perceived as not trainable. We have a very famous story. We have several stories where the Buddha was able to tame those who were perceived as impossible to train. We have several stories of these, where other people gave up, but actually those who come in contact with the Buddha actually have incredible parami, incredible qualities that they have developed through so many lifetimes in samsara. And we have the story of Angulimala, one who was very fierce. Actually, he was born as a himsaka in the Kosala kingdom. And ahimsaka, of all the names he was named originally, means harmless, the one who is harmless, one who is harmless towards others. He was bright, he was a compassionate student, but he was deceived by his peers. And the teacher actually became afraid of Angulimala. And he demanded that Angulimala collect 1,000 human fingers due to this deception. And this is terrible. It's terrible for a teacher to request this, to demand this. And ahimsaka, one who is harmless, then became known as Angulimala. one who wears a garland of fingers, or several. Oh, the children, they love this story, or they become afraid of this story. So the teacher demanded 1,000 human fingers due to this deception. He was afraid of his student, and he came up with that plan. And 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗃, who was nonviolent, the one who was named nonviolence, harmlessness, became known as Angulimala. He wore a garland of fingers. He would kill the victim, and as his trophy, he would cut off the finger and wear it around his neck. And he wanted to collect 1,000 of these fingers. He turned into the greatest feared murderer, wearing the victim's fingers as his necklace. Can you imagine that? Back then, they didn't have communication, and they didn't have law enforcement like they really do now. And so it's possible that someone as evil as this could go around killing many, many people. The Buddha, he's around the area of Angulimala. He knows that Angulimala will be able to become enlightened, and he's not afraid of Angulimala. And Angulimala sees the Buddha, and he says, "This will be my 1,000th victim," because he already collected 999 fingers. Only one finger each. And the Buddha was walking, just very, very normal pace, maybe a little slow. And Angulimala was trying to catch him. He was walking very fast. But the Buddha was walking very slowly and calmly. And he asked the Buddha to stop. He commanded him, "Stop." And the Buddha says, "I have stopped, Angulimala, but it is you who have not stopped." What was he saying? Was he talking about walking? Was he talking about stopping walking? No, he was talking about stopping harming all living beings, becoming an ascetic, becoming a Buddha, and stopping, we could say, samsara. Angulimala, he came to his senses, we could say. He had remorse. He throws away his weapons and he asks for forgiveness. And then he went forth as a Buddhist monk. Just like that. This is about training those who are able to be trained. And so Angulimala, he actually became an arhat. He became an arhat and he became fully enlightened. No greed, no hatred, no delusion. But the people in the local village, they could recognize him, and they started to hurt him. And the Buddha says, just deal with it. It's your past karma. The arhat does not escape the karma that can come back to him in this life. He can die, and this karma doesn't have a chance to have its effects after death. But because he had done so many bad things, even though he was fully enlightened, people started to hurt him, and he was sent one day to help a woman who is in terrible pain during childbirth. And he made a prayer he made a moment of truth to help her pain go away. that since his noble birth he hasn't harmed any living being. Angulimala. So this embodies the teachings of the Buddha. And this is the training of those who are able to be trained. So I hope that you can also come across the teachings of the Buddha and use this as inspiration. So may I be one who can be tamed. The best way is to get rid of the greed, hatred, and delusion, to remove all the negative states of mind permanently, to try that, to do that, and to accomplish that. Satta deva manusanam is another quality. Satta is the teacher. Deva are the devas, the heavenly beings. And manusa, the teachers of devas and men, we say, or people, humans. And so the devas come to the Buddha, they ask questions like we have the Mangala Sutta, maybe we can talk about that. There was also another monk doing a series of the Mangala Sutta, a very in-depth study of the Mangala Sutta, in which the Buddha taught the devas about what is the highest blessing. Buddho, this is another quality. It means the awakened one. We have a Pali phrase for this, but I'm going to translate it for you, just give you the English translation. Since he himself understood the Four Noble Truths and also awakened other beings to them, therefore, for reasons such as these, he is called the Buddha. So awakened is understanding the Four Noble Truths, and for a Buddha, a Samma Sambuddho, he is able to bring others to understand the Four Noble Truths. And we'll talk about this later. We can't talk about everything at once. The Bhagava. The Bhagava is mentioned, 𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗃 Bhagava, and at the very end, Buddho Bhagavati. So it's mentioned twice. It's the blessed one, the fortunate one. We have the conclusion to this talk. We have so to summarize everything, we have the verse, we have the meaning, we talked about the meaning, we talked about why it's important. So we have the verse, 𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗃 Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddho. We talked about the English meaning of this. We talked about why it's important. Well, it's the Buddha. You're taking refuge. Buddhang saranang gacchami. It's also, as the triple gem and the three refuges. So it's very important. And also you can practice the Buddha's qualities, Buddhanusati. It's a type of meditation. It's very important. 𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗃 Bhagavaraham Samma Sambuddho Vinja Charana Sambano Sugeto Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati Sattha Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. Maybe you can remember some of the terms in this Dhamma lecture that I gave to you today. 𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗃, such as he. Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddho, the blessed one, the worthy one, the perfect, self-enlightened Sambuddho. Vidya Charana Sambano Sugeto Lokavidu, the one who is endowed with understanding and good conduct. He's well gone and knower of the worlds. Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati, the unsurpassed guide for those who need the training or taming, who are able to be tamed. Sattadeva manusanam buddho bhagavati, the teacher of gods and men, the Buddha and the Blessed One. Bhagavati, the T is actually like an end quote character to let you know that this is a quote. So you can see this quote. The Buddha talks about himself. He talks about the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha in several places. We have a paritta about this. So I hope that you can understand these qualities. Understand that it's the second most widely chanted verse in Pali that the monks do. I have this on my website. I have some of the most basic Pali chants to learn. If you just Google the most basic Pali chants to learn, the Pali chants to learn, then Google will bring you to my webpage. Actually, not many people have a webpage titled with some of the most essential Pali chants. Of course, this is on it. It's number 2. In terms of popularity and monks chanting and routinely chanting, this would be number 2. It is also called the practice of Buddha Nusati. We have many monks with beads, not Anguli mala, but just a regular mala. And people count the beads. And so usually they do the 𝗷𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗶𝗯𝗀 𝗷 Samma Sambuddho, and they chant the whole thing, one bead. And again, 𝗷𝗶𝗶𝗀, and the whole thing, another bead. Like this, they chant and chant and chant and do a whole round of beads on one, we say, mala. There are 108 beads, but we only count as 100. That's just what we do. And I hope that you can take these teachings and use it as your refuge. Let's chant one more time. 𝗷𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗃 Samma Sambuddho Vinja Charana Sambanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Satta Deva Manusanam Buddho Bhagavati. So I hope that you can, of course, take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, that you can request refuge from a monk in person. You can understand the Ratana, the value of the triple gem. We will cover the other Dhamma and the Sangha so that we have Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And then we will go over some other key points. Mostly we'll probably talk about the 10 courses of wholesome action. We'll probably talk about some other things first. Yeah. We'll talk maybe about the Buddha's relics, and how refuge is broken, and some other related items. So I hope that you can use these teachings to calm down your mind and to reduce the defilements, so that with this calm mind you can see the Four Noble Truths with wisdom, seeing that all conditioned matter arises and passes away, that is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. To see it as impermanent, suffering, and non-self, so that you can reach Nibbana safely and quickly. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.